A kind waitress paid for an old man's coffee. What happened next will change your life forever. In the heart of Maplewood, where the mornings buzzed with the sounds of clinking silverware, and the sweet aroma of fresh pastries filled the air, stood Pinewood Café. Here the small-town chatter spun wildly each day, weaving tales both big and small. Among the regulars was Mr. Thompson, a frail war veteran whose faded uniform told a story of honor and sacrifice. Every morning his quiet demeanor wrapped him in an air of dignity, even as he counted coins, determined to make the perfect exchange for his simple meal. One chilly morning Sarah, a humble waitress in her late 20s, caught sight of Mr. Thompson at the counter, fingers trembling as he struggled to scrape together the pennies. Her heart ached at the sight. A flush of warmth spread through her as compassion bubbled inside. The thought of letting him go without his coffee felt unbearable. With a swift movement she decided to cover his bill, her small act of kindness igniting a spark of change that would soon engulf the entire diner. Mr. Thompson looked up, surprise etched on his weathered face. "Why would you do that?" he whispered, gratitude sparkling in his eyes. His voice cracked, yet there was strength behind it. As the room bristled with curiosity, he began to share his story, the laughter and tears of life, of bravery on the battlefield, and of dreams that once painted his youth brightly but had crumbled under the strain of reality. The dimly lit cafe became alive with the echoes of his past, drawing in both the hearts and ears of every soul present. Whispers of Sarah's acts spread through Maplewood like wildfire. The diner evolved into a battleground for heated discussions. Some rallied behind Mr. Thompson, championing respect for veterans, while others, led by wealthy newcomer Mr. Harrington, scoffed at the romanticism of free coffee, claiming it bred dependency. Emotions ran high, and the sense of unity the community had cultivated for so long began to fray. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the tension swelled, Mr. Thompson, once a quiet observer, felt the gravity of his life's burdens lifting. He stood before the crowd, voice steady as he revealed stories of heroic bravery. Suddenly he was no longer just a frail old man. He was Maplewood's silent sentinel who had saved lives and sacrificed much. His words painted a stark panorama of valor and vulnerability, and the townsfolk found themselves grappling with newfound respect. Yet, as change loomed, so did the reality of Maplewood's economic disparities, leaving many marginalized and unanswered. The dialogue shifted toward the establishment of a support fund for veterans, a noble cause, yet one that faced the scrutiny of Mr. Harrington. Would the town stand united, or would the cracks deepen, pushing neighbors apart? With hope hanging in the frigid air, Sarah could only wonder if her small act of kindness would continue to inspire or fall prey to the greater challenges that lay ahead. The heartbeat of Maplewood was on the verge of redefining itself, but who would have the strength to stand up for what truly matters? The next morning, Pinewood Café was buzzing even more than usual. The sunlight streamed in, casting a warm glow that highlighted the determination on Sarah's face. She had spent the night replaying Mr. Thompson's story in her mind, his words a stark reminder of the sacrifices made for their freedom. The once quiet community was now awakening to the weight of their collective responsibility. As she prepared for the day's rush, customers trickled in, each one wearing expressions that blended curiosity with newfound respect for Mr. Thompson. Sarah moved gracefully between tables, her heart swelling with hope. The café's atmosphere throbbed with a different energy, one that spoke of connection and empathy. "Did you hear about the fundraiser?" Wendy, a regular lunch customer, announced as she settled into her seat. "We need to do something to support the veterans." Whispers rippled through the café, each suggestion taking on a life of its own. They discussed bake sales, raffles, and perhaps even a community talent show. The old wooden tables became a planning ground for a flourishing idea. But then Mr. Harrington swung through the door, his presence causing a palpable shift. His tailored suit seemed to amplify his disdain as he strode toward the counter. "You can't seriously be considering handing over more money to the likes of him," he scoffed, his voice laced with arrogance. What about the hard-working taxpayers? The room fell silent. Even Mr. Thompson, who had been seated quietly reading the newspaper, glanced up, his eyes piercing yet weary. The tension crackled, hanging heavy in the air. Mr. Harrington, Sarah said, her voice steady, this isn't just about charity. It's about recognizing the sacrifices made for our freedom. Her heart raced, but she held her ground. The sudden silence was deafening. All eyes now locked on the newcomer. Harrington's lips curled into a condescending smirk. And turning this cafe into a charity case? Sounds noble, but let us not kid ourselves. It'll only lead to more dependence. Gasps echoed around the cafe as patrons exchanged uneasy glances. Mr. Thompson slowly stood, clenching his weathered fists. Young lady, I appreciate your bravery, he said softly yet firmly. But every man and woman in this cafe has the right to choose whether to support one another in times of need. The words rippled through the diner, sparking an ember of defiance. Sarah saw the spark in others' eyes ignite into determination. Old grievances and beliefs clashed with new dreams of support and unity, leaving a palpable tension that hinted at a much larger storm brewing. As discussions swirled, Sarah caught herself dreaming of what it would mean to see the veterans truly recognized in their town, not just through coffee but with genuine support. She envisioned a community where stories like Mr. Thompson's could inspire unity, rather than divide it. The momentum of the meeting crescendoed, new ideas propelling into action. Then amid the chaos, a soft but powerful voice broke through. What if, Sarah proposed, eyes shining with hope, we create a space for veterans to share their stories, to remind each other what we've gained and lost. Before anyone could respond, the bell over the cafe door jingled loudly, revealing a new arrival, a woman cloaked in shadows, her face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. The energy in the cafe shifted again as the air thickened with quiet curiosity. Who was she? What did she want? The collective breath held in the room seemed to echo Sarah's thoughts. In that instant, the stakes had somehow risen, pulling the community closer to a decision that would define Maplewood's future. As the woman stepped forward, Sarah's heart raced at the thought of what would unfold. Would she be an ally, or carry a challenge the town wasn't ready to face? The mysterious woman paused just inside the cafe, her figure outlined against the bright morning light. People shifted in their seats, their curiosity palpable, eyes darting from her shadowy form to one another. What do you want? Wendy asked, breaking the momentary silence, her voice a mix of boldness and uncertainty. The woman slowly lowered her hat, revealing eyes that seemed to hold untold stories. I heard you're planning to support the veterans, she said, her voice soft but steady. That's the plan, Sarah interjected, stepping forward. Do you have something to add? The woman nodded, her gaze sharp and focused. My name is Eleanor. I'm a veteran too. She took a breath, gathering herself. And I know firsthand the struggles we face when we return home. I've witnessed the hurt and the hope in our community. There's so much we can do together. The atmosphere in Pinewood Café shifted again, prickling with an electric mix of shock and empathy. Eleanor's words seemed to wrap around the patrons like a blanket, bringing warmth alongside a palpable sadness. Why did you hide your identity? A voice from the back called out. It belonged to a man named Jerry, who often sat alone reading the newspaper. His question hung heavy in the air. I didn't want to take anything away from those who have already sacrificed. I thought it was best to remain in the background, Eleanor replied, her eyes glistening for a fleeting moment. But I realize now that silence won't help us heal. We need to come together. Mr. Thompson leaned slightly forward, resting his elbows on the table. You're right. Every story matters. We can't heal if we don't share our burdens. A ripple of agreement spread through the cafe as patrons nodded, impressed by the warmth radiating from Eleanor. Sarah's pulse quickened. This was what she had envisioned, a community uniting in empathy and understanding. What if we opened a dialogue space right here in this cafe? Sarah suggested, excitement bubbling within her. A place where veterans can share their stories with the community, helping bridge that gap between service and civilian life. Eleanor smiled, her face lighting up. Yes, let us create a safe haven where everyone feels welcome. A place of connection. Joy surged through Sarah as she caught the spark igniting in the eyes of those around her. Plans fluttered in the air like confetti, voices mingling as people began offering their ideas, their experiences. Maybe we could host weekly meetings. Wendy proposed. Invite veterans to share their stories. Bring in counselors. The brainstorming took flight, laughter creeping back into the atmosphere as the sense of purpose deepened. For a moment, the tension that had weighed heavily on Maplewood seemed to lift, replaced by a hope that danced in the sunlight flooding the cafe. But as they mapped out their intentions, Mr. Harrington's sneer lingered in the corners of the room. Sarah could almost feel the weight of his disapproval pressing against the joy building in the cafe. While you all dream up your little utopia, he interrupted, his voice dripping with sarcasm, don't forget that actions have consequences. You think that tackling one challenge makes everything else disappear? A chill crept through the gathering. Were they prepared for the pushback? Would they be able to hold on to this momentum, or would it fold under the pressure of scrutiny? Eleanor stepped forward again, her expression fierce. We won't be silent any longer. Together we can prove that one coffee, one story, one community can rally for change. As the cafe buzzed with excitement, Sarah felt an unexpected surge of determination. She realized this was not merely about veterans anymore. It was a fight to reshape their town, to stand united against complacency. With each passing moment, tensions loomed and possibilities shimmered. They might just be on the cusp of creating something powerful. But was the community truly ready to embrace this change? Or were they unwittingly stepping into a greater challenge than any of them anticipated? Only time would reveal the true cost of their determination. The conversations in the cafe melted together in a whirl of enthusiasm and determination. Sarah felt a pulse of energy moving through the supporters around her. The tables buzzed with animated dialogue, dreaming up plans and ideas, but the shadow of Mr. Harrington loomed over them like dark thunderclouds. Seriously, you think you can handle this? He scoffed again. You think you can just fix everything with some coffee meetups and heartwarming chats? Eleanor's eyes flared with indignation. Why not? Starting a conversation is the first step. We can't dismiss the power of connection. Mr. Harrington raised an eyebrow, as if challenging the crowd. And what about the resources? You can't just pull this out of thin air. The room quieted again. For a moment everyone looked around, unsure of how to respond. But Sarah wasn't ready to let the fire die. She had been dreaming about this moment for too long. We may not have all the answers today, but we can find them together, she said, her voice steady and clear. We'll fundraise if we need to. We'll reach out, find veterans, share their stories. That's right. Wendy chimed in, her expression fierce. We have to start somewhere, and that somewhere is right here. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the cafe once more. Mr. Thompson, who had seemed contemplative a moment ago, leaned back, arms crossed but a soft smile creeping onto his lips. A good idea often starts small. If we can make this space a safe spot for dialogue, it might just create a wave. Sarah felt her heart swell at the collective voices rising in support. Just then Eleanor pointed toward the door. We could even invite other veterans from outside town. They'll join us. Someone exclaimed. The ideas unfolded like petals opening to sunlight. Each person provided a piece of their vision. A fundraiser, perhaps a small street fair, could highlight local businesses while bringing in donations. As laughter and camaraderie filled the air, Sarah noticed the tension in the room slowly dissipating. Hope gleamed in the eyes of those around her. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Were they truly prepared for the battles ahead? Just then Jerry, the quiet man who had asked Eleanor about her story, stood up. Can I say something? His voice was hesitant but sincere. I've spent years in this town seeing people struggle. Veterans are just one part of it. There are so many stories that deserve to be heard, people living on the streets, families losing homes. If we can help one group, why not broaden our vision and help others too? Gasps of surprise filled the cafe. Sarah felt a spark, but a spark of concern. Jerry's proposal added layers they hadn't considered. With a fire ignited in his words, she could feel how it shifted the energy of the room. Is that too big for us? Sarah asked tentatively. No. Why not make it bigger? Eleanor responded, passion igniting her voice. Let us make this a true community initiative. But a heavier feeling settled in Sarah's chest. What would it take to really implement these ideas? What unseen obstacles lay ahead? Would they risk everything only to fall short? The excitement around her almost felt intoxicating. Yet, uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Were they ready to take on so much more than they initially envisioned? Before she could voice these fears, Wendy exclaimed, "Let us do it. Let us create something extraordinary." The clinking of cups drowned out any hesitation. One more individual joined the charge, and she felt the atmosphere sharpen. As discussions transformed into plans, the air crackled with potential, the kind of potential that could lead to either greatness or heartache. And just then the door swung open, drawing everyone's attention. A tall figure stood framed against the sunlight, casting a shadow deep across the cafe. The newcomer took a step inside, and the murmurs faded into curious whispers. All eyes focused on the mystery figure. Who is that? Sarah wondered, sensing another twist in their unfolding journey. Could this stranger hold answers, or perhaps even more? Challenges ahead? The figure stepped into the cafe, the door creaking behind them. As they moved closer, Sarah could see the weariness etched into the lines of the person's face. Their clothes were slightly tattered but well cared for, hinting at a story deeper than anyone could guess at first glance. Her heart raced. Who was this stranger? "Can I help you?" Mr. Harrington's voice cut through the air, a mix of challenge and annoyance. The stranger looked at him, then shifted their gaze to the room full of people, scanning for someone with understanding. "Actually, the newcomer started, their voice a blend of strength and fragility. "I was just hoping to join your meeting. I've heard whispers about what you all are planning." Eleanor's curiosity piqued. "You have? How did you hear about it?" The stranger hesitated for a moment, glancing at the door as if gauging the safety of their presence. "I live a few blocks down. This place is where I used to come with my buddies. The cafe was a haven for us, a place to feel connected, to feel something other than the weight of the world on our shoulders." Sarah felt a tightness in her throat. This was someone who understood what they were fighting for. "What's your name?" she asked gently, trying to create a bridge. "Call me Jack," the newcomer said with a faint smile. "I was in the service a long time ago. Got home and things just didn't pan out the way I thought they would. I struggled for a while, living on the edge, you know?" The room was silent, but the weight of his words filled the space, pulling everyone closer. Sarah noticed faces soften, eyes glistening as they absorbed Jack's vulnerability. "I see so much potential in what you're trying to do," Jack continued, leaning against a table. "You want to listen to the stories, help people, right? But you know as well as I do, sometimes it takes more than just words." Wendy stepped forward, her face filled with empathy. "What do you mean, Jack?" Jack took a breath, the air thick with emotion around him. "For some of us, it's not just about talking. It's giving practical support. Real help. Can you provide housing, a meal, a job? That's what the community needs, immediate action." A hush fell over the cafe as frustration clashed with inspiration. Sarah felt torn. They had so many ideas, but Jack was right. Could they manage so much more than just starting a conversation? "Tell us what you think we should do," then Sarah encouraged, her spirit lifting at the idea they could gain insight from someone who had lived it. Jack glanced around the cafe, his eyes sharp yet kind. "Start with the veterans who've come home only to feel lost. Work on their stories, then weave in the others, the homeless, the broken families. Every life matters. Your energy, your passion, it can help a multitude. Just don't limit yourselves." Mr. Harrington scoffed quietly, crossing his arms. "And how do you propose they get the funding for all that?" "I have no clue," Jack admitted, a glimmer of mischief in his smile. "But you all seem to have ideas. Why not tap into the heart of this community? Show them what it means to come together. I believe you can make it happen." Eleanor nodded vigorously. "He's right. We start small, but our vision has to be wide. We need to welcome everyone." The tension in the room melted, replaced by a wave of excitement again. Sarah could nearly feel their collective heartbeat quickening. But just as the enthusiasm anchored in a new direction, Jack glanced at the door again, as if sensing a shadow lurking just outside. "What is it?" Sarah asked, concern creeping into her voice. "I don't want to be just a voice in here," Jack replied. "I have an idea, but it's going to take courage and it might put you all at risk." "Risk is part of this," Eleanor said, her eyes flaring with determination. "What do you need us to do?" Jack smiled faintly. "If you want to change everything, we might need to call in some favors and a few people you've never met before. And if they show, something big might just happen." Sarah's heart raced at the prospect. Could this be the turning point? Could they really make the difference they dreamed of? As the air hummed with possibility, she could feel her doubts fading just for a moment. But the lingering uncertainty of Jack's hint sat heavy on her heart. What did he mean by risk? What would their next step reveal? And would they have the strength to face whoever was waiting just beyond their current reality? Jack's words hung in the air, electrifying the atmosphere with an unease that brushed against anticipation. Sarah could feel the adrenaline thrumming in her veins. She wanted to build, to create, to transform lives. But could they truly take that leap into unknown territory? Favors? Mr. Harrington repeated. Skepticism etched into his frown. Now you're talking about pulling in folks who may not want to be involved, Jack. We could put our mission in jeopardy. Jack shook his head, the flicker of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You're scrappy. That's what makes this cafe a potential launchpad. But you'll need help, and that help might not fit the mold you've imagined. Eleanor leaned forward, practically bouncing with excitement. What kind of help? We can figure something out. We're already in this together, right? As they spoke, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being at a crossroads. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears. Were they ready to welcome chaos into their carefully planned lives? Jack scanned the room again. I know people who can open doors to resources you've never even considered. But here's the catch: you'll have to accept the uncomfortable conversations. Not everyone will embrace what you're trying to do. Those who face challenges often wear their scars openly. Takes courage to meet them where they are. The room was enveloped in silence, as each person digested Jack's challenge. It was one thing to speak of change in warm, inviting terms. It was another to pull back the curtain and confront the reality of it. I want to try, Sarah blurted out, her voice trembling but strong. I want this place to mean more. If we can talk to veterans and hear their stories, maybe we can lift a little bit of what they carry. Help them breathe again. With renewed determination brewing among them, Wendy piped up, I can take on outreach. We can create flyers or social media posts, make it known that we want to listen. I can handle logistics, Mr. Harrington added reluctantly. If we want to provide food or shelter, we'll need to create a plan. Jack gave an approving nod, his expression a mixture of pride and caution. Great. But remember, the true stories are filled with pain too. What you hear might shake you. Are you willing to embrace that chaos? They nodded, the collective resolve cementing in their hearts. But Sarah couldn't silence the voice of doubt. She glanced at the door, the weight of Jack's unspoken warning lingering ominously. What awaited them out there? Who would they encounter? Jack faltered for a moment, his attention now firmly on something or someone outside. You need to decide quickly. The longer we wait, the quicker the opportunity slips away. Those with the means to help won't wait forever. Against the cafe's backdrop, the clatter of cups and murmurings faded as everyone's eyes followed Jack's gaze. There it was again, the hint of shadows lurking just outside. What is out there, Jack? Sarah asked, pulling her courage around her like a coat. He hesitated, his eyes searching within the shadows. Let us just say not everyone wants change. But sometimes change comes at a price. Are you willing to pay it? The moment hung, filled with endless possibilities and unspoken fears. In that vulnerable silence, Sarah's determination swelled within her, a force that had been waiting to emerge. And then, almost like a promise, the cafe door swung open, the bell jingling as a tall figure stepped inside. Hey, I heard you might need some help. The collective breath of the room caught. The air crackled with tension as they turned to see who had just entered their new chapter. What did this stranger bring with them? Would they be the ally they desperately needed? Or another obstacle in their journey? The figure that stepped inside was a man tall and lean, with a weathered face that told stories of hard days and longer nights. His clothes were a bit too big, frayed at the cuffs, yet he held himself with a quiet strength that sharpened everyone's focus. Moments ticked by, and Sarah felt a strange magnetism pull her toward him. Hi there. I'm Ben, he said, his voice gravelly but warm, like an old record playing in a cozy room. I heard there's something special happening here, and I'm ready to lend a hand. I might not have much, but I know a thing or two about hard lives. The group exchanged glances, skepticism mixing with surprise. Sarah felt herself exhaling, a tension releasing from her chest. An unexpected feeling of hope flickered, like the soft glow of early dawn. What kind of help can you offer? Jack asked, leaning in. Ben shrugged, a small smile breaking through. I've survived my own battles, seen too many friends lost to the darkness. If you want to talk to veterans, I can help connect you. I know a few that might want to share their stories. I've seen what the words can do. Wendy looked at Sarah with wide eyes. Is he for real? Can we trust him? Something in Sarah's gut told her yes. She stepped forward. It doesn't matter if he's a stranger. If he believes in us, we should believe in him too. We need to take the leap. Ben nodded appreciatively. You've got good instincts. Change is scary, but it's also necessary. I can help you get started. Let us create a plan. In that moment, as words flew and ideas bounced around the cafe, Sarah's doubt faded further into the background. They were forming a coalition, a small but fierce group of average people, willing to dig deep. Discovering and embracing stories of struggle, courage, and redemption felt like a calling, not just for them, but for anyone who ever felt lost. Jack tapped lightly on the table. Let us get practical. We need a timeline and actionable steps. How soon can we start reaching out? Ben's soft laughter filled the air, easing the tension. How about today? Get those flyers ready, share the word, and let us hit the streets. Mr. Harrington jumped in. I can manage the logistics. Let us say 3 days from now we aim to host an event right here. We'll provide coffee and a place to gather, share, and listen. Yeah, Eleanor chirped, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The cafe can be a haven, where stories are told over warm cups of coffee. A place to heal. As the group buzzed with enthusiasm, Sarah felt her pulse race again, not out of fear but from exhilaration. With Ben's arrival, the pieces were aligning like stars in a cosmic dance. Yet, somewhere in the back of her mind, a whisper of uncertainty lingered. What scars lay beneath Ben's smile? What darkness had shaped him? Before we start, Ben, Sarah found herself asking, what is your story? What brought you here? His expression shifted, a brief shadow crossing his features. It's complicated, but it leads me to believe that healing begins with connection. Sometimes the past holds us back, but sharing it can be the first step toward freedom. In the collective silence that followed, paired with the inviting aroma of coffee brewing, Sarah understood that their journey wouldn't just be about helping others. They were about to dive into their own stories, the ones they often buried deep. But as Jack's words echoed in her mind, the change that might come with a price, Sarah wondered, at what cost would they all emerge from this? As the group moved into action that day, Sarah felt the weight shift. They'd taken the first step forward. Yet the question remained, what would the next chapters demand from them? And were they ready to face the truth? The cafe felt alive, buzzing with fresh hope, but her heart drummed with anticipation as their real stories awaited. The door behind Ben creaked, and something deep inside Sarah stirred, ready to unravel. What would emerge from these shared moments? The air in the cafe buzzed with excitement, ideas flitting about like butterflies on a warm day. Sarah felt the warmth of camaraderie wrap around her as laughter mixed with the clinking of cups. They were more than just a group now. They were a team, each member stepping into their role for the mission ahead. She watched as Jack flipped through a notepad, scribbling down notes about the event, his brow furrowed in concentration. Eleanor roamed between tables, gathering supplies for flyers, her fingers dancing with urgency. Even Mr. Harrington seemed rejuvenated, his smile infectious as he calculated seating arrangements. Ben stood by the window, his silhouette framed by the light pouring through the glass. Sarah found herself drawn to him again, his quiet disposition a contrast to the flurry of activity around them. She approached him, hesitating slightly. Are you okay? He turned, his gaze steady, eyes reflecting shadows of his past. Just thinking about how this will unfold. Change can be messy. Yeah, but it can also be beautiful. She smiled, trying to bridge the gap that she sensed lingered. You're a part of something important here. He nodded, but didn't speak. There was a heaviness, a world behind that smile. As the group worked, Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. Instinctively, she knew that they were on the brink of something profound. By sharing their stories, they would unearth buried pain, and there would be no turning back. But she couldn't shake the sense that the journey would not just lead to healing, it might expose raw wounds they hadn't prepared to face. Soon the flyers took shape, colorful paper filled with carefully crafted words promising a safe space for storytelling. Each one felt like a lifeline thrown into the dark waters of uncertainty. But amidst the increasing momentum, Sarah's pulse quickened at the looming fear of what was to come, especially with Ben's cryptic words echoing in her mind. As they finalized the details, the atmosphere shifted abruptly as the bell above the door chimed again. A frail old man shuffled in, leaning heavily on a wooden cane. His face was lined with age, the weight of years visible in deep-set wrinkles. The few patrons glanced up momentarily before returning to their conversations, but Sarah stepped forward instinctively. "Can I get you something?" she asked, her voice warm yet concerned. The old man looked up, his eyes glassy but filled with gratitude. "Just a coffee, dear," he replied, his voice shaky but laced with sweetness. Without thinking twice, Sarah turned and poured a cup from the pot, setting it on the counter in front of him. "It's on the house," she said brightly, hoping to lift his spirit. A surprised smile broke through the old man's tired features. "Thank you, young lady. It's been a long time since anyone's done that for me," he murmured, taking a sip. The coffee seemed to awaken something in him, and his posture straightened just a little. Sarah smiled back, but before she could step away, the old man leaned forward. "You're all doing something brave here," he said, glancing around the cafe at her friends who were busy preparing. "Just remember, it's the small acts of kindness that can save a life." His words lingered in the air like a note played on a piano, meaningful and resonant. That simple gesture, a cup of coffee, was a reminder. Sarah felt a surge of determination wash over her. This journey they were embarking upon was not just about gathering stories. It was about connection, about small acts of kindness that mattered in a world that felt so divided. As the group gathered around the old man, sharing laughter and a few gentle stories, Ben watched from the sidelines, an unreadable expression shadowing his face. Could it be, she wondered, that this small interaction held the key to everything they were trying to achieve? Or was it merely a fleeting moment in a much larger narrative? The bell over the door chimed again, this time announcing the arrival of a young woman, her face streaked with tears. In an instant the cafe became a sanctuary, not just for stories but for healing, whatever that would demand. And as they turned to welcome her, Sarah's heart raced with the fading last breath of uncertainty. What truths would they all confront together? What stories were yet to be unveiled? The young woman stepped into the cafe, her face illuminated by the soft, warm light but shadowed by distress. There was something raw in her eyes, a familiar pain that pricked at Sarah's heart. The laughter around them quieted, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. She exchanged a glance with Ben, whose brow furrowed deeper. They shared an unspoken understanding that this was a moment of significance, a moment where every heart in the room might bend under the weight of shared experience. "Hey there," Eleanor called gently from the group. "You okay?" The newcomer hesitated, taking a breath that rattled in her chest. I don't know," she admitted, her voice scarcely above a whisper. The room seemed to shrink around her discomfort, the faces of the group morphing from curiosity to concern. "Why don't you join us?" Jack offered, his kindness evident. "We're getting organized for a storytelling event. You might find it helpful." The young woman's gaze darted around the cafe, landing on the old man, still sipping his coffee. There was a flicker of recognition, a connection that seemed to bridge the silence. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I needed to get away." Sarah stepped closer. "You're not intruding at all. You're welcome here," she said softly, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're all trying to create a space where we can share what we're going through. You don't have to alone." The young woman's eyes welled with tears again. With a trembling breath she stepped forward, her voice breaking. "I lost my job last week. And my mom just found out her cancer is back. I don't know what to do. I'm just scared." The weight of her confession hung heavily in the air, a quiet surrender that hit every heart like a drum. Sarah's stomach twisted. She had no words, no grand gestures to erase the pain in the room, but she didn't need to fix it. They just needed to hold space for each other. The old man suddenly spoke up, his voice cracked but steady. "I know what it feels like to lose everything. I might be old, but I still remember the days when life felt unbearable." He looked at her with a sincerity that shimmered like hope. "Takes time. And you don't have to face it alone. You have people here who care. As the young woman looked around, she seemed to absorb their solidarity, a fragile solace that felt both comforting and intimidating. Bit by bit, the tension in her shoulders eased ever so slightly. Sarah felt her heart lift. This connection was what they had hoped for. Your stories matter, Ben finally said, stepping into the space that had just opened up. The tough ones, the beautiful ones. They mean something. You are brave just for being here. Gathering her strength, the young woman nodded. Maybe I can share when I'm ready. With tentative smiles all around, the cafe transformed. The laughter and camaraderie were laced with a new energy, a commitment to be real and to be present for one another. But just as they were beginning to connect, the door swung open again. This time bringing in a group of young men, a turbulent mix of energy and chaos. They spilled in, laughter that rang out sharper than before, completely disrupting the fragile atmosphere. What fresh mess are they bringing? Sarah thought. Ben's expression darkened as he turned to watch them with concern. Would their arrival shatter the moment they had built? In that instant, Sarah felt the air thicken again, the promise of their gathering slipping through her fingers like sand. The challenge of her resolve returned. How would they hold this space amidst the uncertainty that loomed ahead? Would they rise to meet this new energy, or would they let it drown the kindness they had started to foster? Her heart raced at the uncertainty. She felt the stakes rise, and the sense of impending transformation crackled in the air. What would happen when they faced both their fears and this unexpected chaos together? And could they find a way to weave the stories of everyone in the room into something greater, even when it threatened to tear them apart? The atmosphere in Pinewood Café crackled like a live wire as the rambunctious group of young men poured through the door. Their laughter sliced through the fragile camaraderie that had begun to bloom, a sudden gust of turbulence threatening to shatter the warmth they had just built. Sarah inhaled sharply, her heart racing. Had their moment of connection, all those fragile threads of shared stories, just been upended? As the newcomers exchanged raucous jokes and pushed through the crowded tables, she glanced at Ben. His jaw tightened, but he stood resolute, eyes narrowed in anticipation. Hey, mind keeping it down a bit? He called out as he moved toward them, a steady tone in his voice, but it carried an undeniable authority. The leader of the group, a tall guy with a baseball cap tilted backward, shot a cheeky grin. Chill out, old man. We're just having a good time here. The laughter echoed, but it was met by murmurs of discomfort from the cafe's patrons. Even the young woman from before shifted in her seat, a flicker of panic flashing in her eyes. Look, we're just trying to create a safe space here. Eleanor stepped in, her voice firm but inviting. Why don't you grab a seat and join us? For a split second, the new guys observed, the tension undeniable. The room held its breath, hearts pounding in the unspoken hope that they would choose camaraderie over chaos. Safe space, huh? What us gathering around coffee gonna do for anybody? The tall guy retorted, but his tone lacked conviction. You'd be surprised. Sarah chimed in, stepping forward. It's not just coffee. It's about sharing stories and listening to each other. You might find more than you expect. Her words landed softly but firmly, and she felt an unexpected shift. The laughter began to quiet, and the leader eyed her with a new curiosity. The vibrant, youthful energy started fading into cautious intrigue. Stories? You serious? He asked, a flicker of skepticism laced with challenge. Yes, Jack interjected, his voice low but resonant, pulling the group's attention. Each of us holds a story, some beautiful, some painful. It's the real stuff that connects us. If you're here to hang out, you might find that it's worth sticking around. To everyone's surprise, the gravity of Jack's words began to settle. The group's bravado faltered, and the leader folded his arms, uncertain. With the air thickening, Sarah saw it, the moment was ripe for connection. Look, I know you guys come in looking for fun, said Wendy, her tone lighter yet sincere. But what if we mixed it up? What if you shared something real with us? It's way more interesting than just noise. A pause stretched, the tension weaving itself into curiosity. The raucous group exchanged glances before the tall guy let out a breath, his posture easing just a smidge. All right, I'll bite, he said, finally moving to sit down with his crew. What's your story then? This better be good. Encouraged, Sarah quickly gathered the words. I'm Sarah, she began, the cadence of her voice growing steady. We're trying to create a community here. All of us have different lives, but we've come together for something greater. We want people to feel seen and heard again, especially those who've fought hard battles. As she spoke, she caught the eyes of the young woman, who leaned forward, eager to join in. And I'm right there with you. I felt so alone. Slowly, the energy in the cafe shifted. The tales of struggle started to unfold, the light glimmering in shared experiences. The young men found themselves drawn in, their initial skepticism fading as they grew curious about the warmth building in the cafe. An unexpected sense of connection began to wash over the room. Stories became interwoven, resonating with whispers of pain and strength. Each voice mattered as voices of strangers began to blend into a collective symphony. Ben focused on the newcomers, sharing quietly from the depths of his own journey. It gets hard to talk, to admit what we're feeling. But that's where healing starts, when you let someone else in. Slowly, the walls around the tall guy crumbled. Fine. I used to think showing weakness made you weak. But it's not that, is it? Before long, laughter surged again, spilling over as shared stories built reassurance. They danced through memories and hopes, a shared experience tighter than the space that separated them. In a moment of vulnerability, the young woman stood up again. This is hard. I lost my job, but here it feels less heavy. I have you to lean on. We're not alone in this. The cafe filled with voices celebrating strength forged from struggle. Sarah felt a rush of pride as she watched laughter and tears blend, turning the shadows from outside into light. But then, just as hope surged through the peaks of laughter, chaos lurked just outside. The lingering presence of doubt, the ripple of scrutiny that Mr. Harrington had left in his wake. The cafe door burst open again, an almost palpable shift as the chaos from the street poured in. A couple of patrons from another coffee shop nearby. And yet it was something more. Hey, what is going on in here? One of them yelled, a tinge of mockery laced in the air. For a moment the atmosphere stilled, a palpable discomfort settling heavily. The tight-knit camaraderie of the cafe strained under the weight of uncertainty again. Face turned to ash, Sarah felt darkness creeping back. Were they ready to face the outer world that wanted them to fail? Would their journey of connection withstand this disruption? She stepped forward, heart thundering in her chest. We're creating community here. It's hard work, but the beauty of it is growing courage through connection. We're here to build each other up. Initially surprised, the new arrivals shared uncertain glances, but finally the quiet famished sparks ignited. Then we should join in, one declared, slowly moving to grab a chair. I'd like to hear what's going on. For perhaps the first time, it seemed the world beyond Pinewood Cafe was ready to listen instead of drown out their voices. Strength blossomed like a flower, raw but unfurling beneath the sun. Sarah turned back, the stakes illuminated brightly. As laughter intertwined with tears, she strengthened her resolve. This is just the beginning, she whispered, her heart racing with possibility. Through all the noise and confusion, she would march on. Together they would craft a tale of resilience, and perhaps, just perhaps, change was indeed in reach. This was their transformative moment, a brewing storm igniting in the thickening air. And of all the connections they refused to let go of, it was this one that would lead them forward, pushing through fear and doubt and pressing toward the horizon where hope awaited. Let us do this, she breathed, summoning each voice and every story, weaving it together under the shelter of their cafe. A beacon of unity, even when everything outside seemed intent on pulling them apart. Together, Sarah proclaimed, smile unwavering. And they echoed her, standing strong, hearts intertwined and ready to rise in solidarity. The moment had come. They were ready to redefine Maplewood, one story at a time. Now it's your turn to be part of the transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our journey. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.